So here are the speakers out of my Honda Civic. They are the worst quality speakers I have ever seen in my entire life. So that is why the sound sounds so horrible in that car. I'm glad I replaced these. Yikes. I mean, it's shameful. I mean, I get it. It's a cheap car. But man, I mean, look at that. What junk. Hello and welcome to the video. Today I just wanted to give everybody a quick walk around of my Honda Civic. Tell you what I like, what I don't like about it. This is obviously a coupe. I bought this one with the 2-liter naturally aspirated engine with the 6-speed manual transmission. I really like the fact that this car came with a naturally aspirated engine. I did not want a car with a turbocharged engine. And Honda, I was really surprised that they gave us that option. Hood latch is here. Let's take a quick look so everybody can see. This is the K20 2-liter. And as you can see, there's a lot more space and room to work on it than the 1.5 turbo. They don't have any trouble with this engine as far as I know. Not like the 1.5 with the oil dilution problems with the blow-by. The engine oil is filling up with gasoline from blow-by past the piston rings, and that is not good. You know, an engine that's made correctly should not do that. Fit and finish is okay. It's a cheaper car, so I can't really complain too much about it. But you can see the body lines here. Look at the gap. You know, the fit and finish is just not what Honda is known for. It's kind of like they, I don't know, they cut corners in some places and put more money into other places. The styling is really cool. I think it's a great looking car. With the LX model, if you buy the coupe, you do get the alloy wheels, which I didn't even know that when I bought it until they pulled it up. The fuel economy is amazing with this thing also. I think I'm averaging about a little over 40 miles a gallon, maybe 42 or 43 miles to the gallon. I purchased this car for long drives. My wife and I like to tour a lot. We usually like to take the motorcycles, but sometimes the weather just isn't good enough. So if we have vacation planned and we got to go somewhere, we can jump in this car and travel across the country really cheap. Very reliable little car. And they'll make it with a manual transmission too. I love that. There aren't many cars left. You know, I didn't want any car that had a belt drive or a turbocharger. I did not want that. That's why I was so shocked that Honda actually made this. But I love it. That's why I bought it. Just open the trunk so everybody can see what it, you know, how big it is in the coupe. Back seat is okay. I think I climbed back here once, but my head, I'm 5'11". My head was touching the ceiling a little bit. It's okay for like little kids or luggage, put a cooler back here when traveling, stuff like that. But if you plan on carrying more than just yourself and one other person, I would probably opt for the sedan or the hatchback. Okay, I just got my old floor mats in here. I got the rubber floor mats. The sound system in this car is not very good when it comes from the factory, at least in the LX model. I'm not sure how the other models are, but it sounds really bad. I mean, it's probably one of the worst car stereos I've ever heard. So I had to upgrade that, and I went a little over the top and put the subwoofer and amplifier in the back. But I had all the internal speakers, the 4 internal speakers, the 2 up front and the 2 in the rear deck, replaced. And when I get home, I'll show you what the original ones look like, and you will see that they just look cheap. They're like the cheapest speakers I've ever seen in my entire life. It's horrible. One of the things I don't really like about this is the car is kind of low to the ground, so you get a lot of debris hitting right in the front of your radiator. And this is not actually the radiator, I don't think. This is your heat exchanger for your air conditioning. So, I mean, if a big stone or rock or something flew off a tire and went through there, it wouldn't stop you, but your air conditioning would definitely stop working. But I've pulled garbage and like styrofoam cups out of there before. It just collects a lot of debris. The underside of the car is okay. You have this aluminum plate here that you have to take off to change the oil, get to the oil drain plug and oil filter. And that is some really thin, flimsy aluminum. I think I had to hit a piece of ice when we were traveling the other week, and it just crushed it. I mean, put a huge dent in it. Then when I got home and I was changing oil, I just laid it down the driveway and pushed the dent out, and it was fine. But I think that could have been made a little bit better than it was. Again, it's a cheap car, can't complain too much. But things like this, you know, it's just a piece of plastic. I mean, yeah, I guess it's there to help with fuel economy, but I wish they would have used a little bit better sound deadening, because the road noise is pretty loud when you're driving. I mean, they did put some around the wheels, but not enough. But there's no rattles or anything coming loose when I'm driving it. It feels very solid, feels very well built. Let's go for a little drive. Gauge cluster I love in this car. I like the layout, I like the simplicity of it. I love that there's a real needle in there for the tachometer instead of just a digital screen. I'm not a big fan of those digital screens. I feel like they're really cheaply made. You know, they can make them for next to nothing. It actually costs a little bit more money to make all those little parts and make moving parts in there. So I was kind of happy about that. As you can see, what do we got here? We got the range, 465 miles to go. When I filled it up, it was a little over 500, maybe like 510, 515, and I've been driving for a little bit. On our last trip, we drove from southeast Wisconsin to the Grand Canyon in Las Vegas, and we hit some really rough weather, snow in the mountains, windy, just very unpleasant driving conditions, and it still did 42.3 miles to the gallon. I just changed oil in it, so we're good there. Car has a total of 17,000 miles on it. The radio is just very basic, which I like. I don't need an infotainment system. I like basic cars. If this car would have came with crank windows, I would have bought that one. I don't like electronic gizmos. I just like simple cars, because those are the ones that seem to last the longest and give you the least amount of problems in the long run. So again, there's nothing fancy going on here. It still links to your phone. As you can see, there's a little Bluetooth signal there. My wife has it linked to her phone, so when we're traveling, she can play music from the internet directly to the radio. You can make phone calls, stuff like that. There is a USB here that I put all my music on. because there is no CD player in these newer cars. So you have to use the USB, upload it to the USB, then plug it into your car. It has to be a certain format, so make sure if you want to do this, you read about it and understand it before you just start putting music on a card, then realizing that the card's in the wrong format, because then you have to delete it all and do it all over again. Climate control seems to work really good. Again, it's air conditioning's not even going to turn on because it's only 56 degrees outside. Anyway, I have no problems with that. The glove box is pretty big. Just keep the book here, a couple of phone chargers. Oh, let's see. I think I got the window sticker in. Here's the window sticker for the car. Figured I'd show you that. Oh, let me close the cord in there. So I bought this. This is a 2017 model, like I said earlier. The only reason I bought it when I did is because it was late 2017. The 2018 models were already out, and Honda was having some promotional deal for 0.9% financing. So I went for it. I went in there and I told them, I want the 0.9%. I want this car. I want this engine, this transmission, this color. I wanted a blue one. I didn't like any of the other colors. I didn't like how they looked. They had a black one. They tried talking me into a black one. No, I already had a black car before. I don't want another black car. Anyway, I would definitely wait until the next model year comes out if you're thinking of buying one of these cars, so you get a better deal on it. Because as far as I know, they're all the same yet. Especially with the 2-liter. I don't know if they're going to update the 1.5. I'm sure they will at some point, because there are some problems with that. Here's the assembly plant. This car was built in Canada. The engine was built in the United States. Transmission was built in India. I think if you get the CV transmission, I believe those are made in the United States. And I believe the sedans are assembled in the United States. And as of now, I think the hatchbacks are still made in Europe. But I thought I read somewhere that they were closing that plant and bringing it to the United States also. So this is I live in southeast Wisconsin. So where this engine plant or this car assembly plant is just north of Niagara Falls, about an hour. So this car was pretty much built locally, which I really like that. Now that's something I looked for when I was looking at cars, where they were made. All right, let's take it for a little drive so you guys can kind of see what it's like. Again, the transmission feels really nice, very smooth. The clutch is okay. I took a little bit of time getting used to it. My previous car was a Ford Focus ZX3, 2007. And this clutch is a little bit different. I don't know, it just seems like there's a delay when you let the clutch out and you push it in. Like when I push it in, I gotta wait just a little bit before I can take it out of gear, because it still feels like there's load on the gears and it doesn't want to come out of gear or shift into another gear. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just not used to it. I don't know. But I know I read something that there was like a delay system on there. So if somebody were to slip and drop the clutch, it won't just slap the clutch plates closed. It'll still let them close gently enough not to damage anything. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's something to look into. I'm starting to get better with it now, and it seems to affect me less. But I heard of people bypassing that system, and it doesn't sound very difficult to do. A lot of road noise. The tires this car comes with don't seem very good. Even in heavy rain, going down the interstate, it seems kind of slippery when you're going up a big hill or something like that. I'm definitely going to try a different brand of tire when I change these. With taking long trips, there's 17,000 miles on this car now, and the tires still seem really good. There's really no point in rotating them because the tread difference on front and rear really isn't that much. I like the handling of this car. The handle's really nice around corners. The ride is firm. The car is low, the ride is firm, but it does handle nice. You don't get much sway around curves or corners. No rattling in the interior. Again, you would think in a car with very firm, or not very firm, but firm suspension, you'd get a lot of rattling. No, nothing so far. But I don't know if you guys can hear it on camera, but there's a lot of road noise coming from the tire, and road surface seems to make a pretty big difference. On some roads, you don't hear anything. On others, it's really noticeable and noisy, and can get annoying. The seats are okay. At first, when I sat in this car, I didn't like the seats. But the more I sit in it, the more I drive the car, the more I think, you know, they're all right. They seem very firm and uncomfortable at first. I did put these seat covers in to help protect them, just from normal wear and tear, from being out in the rain, pumping gas, getting them wet, things like that. I had seat covers like this in my previous car, and they worked great. I had them in there for a few years. They were all stained up, looking gross and nasty. Then I just recently pulled them out, and the seats underneath the seat covers looked like brand new yet. So I was very impressed with that, so I bought another set of the seat covers and put them in this car. This thing does phenomenal fuel economy when I drive it. You know, I drive fairly conservatively. I don't hypermile it, but I definitely drive it easy. I want to take care of it. I want it to last a long time. I want it to be very reliable when my wife and I want to take it on a long trip, so I don't pound on it. And I swear, this thing going down the highway, when you're just cruising like 55, 60 miles an hour, I think it's doing like 45, 46, 47 miles to the gallon. It does really, really good. You know, to average 42 over that long trip we just took is very impressive for an old technology that this engine is. You know, it's just a naturally aspirated, port injected with a manual transmission. I was very shocked at the economy of this car, because on the window sticker it doesn't say that. It says something a lot lower. You know, I think it says like 1 mile per hour less than their turbo engine. And I don't know if that's true. I've looked a lot on like the Facebook groups I'm in for the 10th gen Civic. I've seen a lot of those people, but see, they drive it like it's a sports car, and I think if you pound on those turbos, they can pump a lot of gas through them. But if you drive them conservatively, they might be able to beat this, but not by much. Again, I wish they would have done a little better with the sound deadening and insulating the car from road noise. I feel like that takes a lot away from it. Because you notice it right away, right when you start driving it, you can hear it. And it is annoying. But again, it's a cheap car, so I don't know. It is what it is. They had to cut costs somewhere. The engine takes 0-20 oil, which to me, that's the lightest oil I've ever seen in an engine. I think that has a lot to do with the engine getting such good fuel mileage. You know, it has a lighter oil. It doesn't have to pump or slap into that really heavy, thick stuff. You know, it's very light, almost like water when I drain it. This car does have this little economy button here. I don't think it does much in the in this car with this engine and transmission. I don't think it plays a big role. I think it has more to do with the CVT and the turbo. They still put it in this car. And really all I can tell that it does is it changes the throttle response. So in order to go faster, you got to press the pedal down further. Then as you reach the bottom of the stroke of the pedal, then you start to get full power again. You know, it goes back to normal. And then also it says that it turns the compressor on and off more frequently for the air conditioner. So when you have the air conditioner on, it's constantly turning the compressor on and off to try to conserve energy. So when I run the air conditioning, I always make sure I have the button turned off, because I do not want my compressor turning on and off that much. It doesn't sound like it's good for the longevity of the compressor to turn on and off frequently. But you know, when the air conditioning is off and I'm cruising down the highway, sometimes I'll turn it on. I don't think it really does anything though. We also have the brake hold. So when you stop on a hill and you have your foot on the brake, or when you come to a stop in general, it'll hold the brake for you. So you don't have to hold your foot on the brake at a stoplight. So you can have one foot on the clutch and one foot on the gas pedal without having to worry about rolling back. But as soon as you start to let off the clutch and you start to press on the gas, you have to stay committed, because if you don't put your foot back on the brake pedal, it will not engage the brake and you will roll back. So if you're going to go, you have to go, and it works just fine. But if you're just learning how to drive stick shift, just be aware that you have to go. Like, you have to be committed. When you decide to go, you have to go. So if you change your mind, if you just go a little bit, then you change your mind and you want to stop again, then you got to put your foot back on the brake or turn that system back on. Another really interesting thing that Honda did that I was surprised, actually I just learned this, and I read the entire owner's manual when I bought this car, and I don't remember it saying that in the owner's manual. It's kind of strange. But you can have this car, let's say you're going on the freeway 65, 70 miles an hour, and you have the cruise set in 6th gear. All of a sudden there's a great big steep hill coming up. You can push the clutch in and shift the gear and let the clutch out without touching the gas or brake, and it will stay in cruise control. And it will maintain your speed. It's really weird. You know, any cars that I ever drove that were stick shift that had cruise control, if you push that clutch in, it canceled cruise control. I found that out by mistake. I think I was driving to Florida, and there was a big hill. I thought, well, I'll just push the clutch in, shift in a lower gear, and it'll cancel the cruise control, because there was slower traffic up ahead. So I did that. You know, I just pushed the clutch in, shifted in the lower gear. All of a sudden the car started going again. Is that a bird? Jesus. So it really freaked me out. You know, my foot's not on the gas, it's not on the brake. I pushed the clutch in. You know, in my mind, cruise control should be canceled, but it's not. So now the car is accelerating and traffic in front of me is going slower. I mean, I hit the brakes, but it took me a moment to figure out what actually happened. But now that I know that, it's actually kind of nice. You know, when I'm going up steep hills, I can just shift the gear and not have to worry about re-engaging the cruise control. It's still set, and it'll just resume in that gear that you put it in. So you push the clutch in, it won't like rev the engine way up like it's trying to maintain speed. It'll hold the RPMs, let you shift the gear, and let the clutch out. Then it takes it a second, then it'll start going again. And it does it pretty gently. That's another thing with the eco mode that I noticed. Going up and down hills in eco mode, it'll tend to kind of hypermile a little bit in the hills. So when you start going up a hill, it'll slow down a mile or two as you go up a hill. Then when you come back down the side of the hill, it'll speed up a mile or two from where you have it set. So down the hills, it'll let the car roll a little bit faster. Then up the next hill, it'll let it slow down a little bit, which that does improve fuel economy. And I like that they did that. If you don't have an eco mode, it'll fluctuate a little bit, but it's going to try to hold that exact speed uphill or downhill. The factory headlights that the LX model comes with, and I think a couple of the models above that, are not very impressive. I switched those out. I put some Op7 LEDs in the high and low beams, because high and low beam in this car are two separate bulbs. So you have 4 headlight bulbs on the front of this car. And I was not impressed with how it came from the factory. It was not up to par for what a new car should be. You know, I feel like my old Ford Focus had better headlights than this. You know, they weren't very good. So that's something to think about if you do purchase one of these. You know, just keep in mind that it's a cheap car, and some things just are not up to par, maybe, of what you expect it to be or what you want it to be. When I bought it, I knew the stereo wasn't good. I think that was one of the biggest complaints to people who bought the car, is that the radio sounds horrible. I think the second complaint was the uncomfortable seats, which I've gotten used to. They're not so bad. What else was there? I think that's about it. I think reliability and dependability, stuff like that, you know, they don't really tend to break down. Yeah, the speakers, the seats, and the headlights are probably the weakest point of this car. I like the interior. I like, you know, they use different materials in the interior. They made it look nice. They gave it a nice gauge cluster. They put a big tachometer front and center. The mirrors are big. You can see a lot in your mirrors. The coupe doesn't have too much of a blind spot. I thought it was going to be worse, but it's not.